get it right. We gon' get it right.
Protests and anthems, yes, we chanting. A movement of people, it's like we dancing to the ministry of. It's the energy of, in memory of them that we love. The trinity of the people, the peace, the power, the truth. We speak, the power's even louder. We can say it blacker, we can say it prouder. A woman vice president that went to Howard. Now we talk helping black businesses, and our differences is magnificent. Bringing light to the point where the prisons is. I was told good life is where forgiveness lives. The ascension is to leave what's left behind and feed the seeds with deeds that bless the mind, caress the mind, and question justify. With you and God in time, my best align.
Shine, flies, no time to waste while it's passing you by. Shine, flies, be patient, cause good things happen in time. We gon' get it right, we gon' get it right. We gon' get it right. We gon' get it right.
How can I be a better father, son, a better grandson, honoring Fannie Lou's and the Fred Hamptons, the Harriets, the chariots that carry us to various areas that marry us to progress. Yeah, we the harvest, the lovely days and midnight marauders, even through charges and days of darkness. No, we in the hands of the greatest artists. I see it in the waters, I see it in our daughters. They can be bridges that know no borders. For so long, them folk tried to ignore us. So we got the ballot boxes to vote for us. Peace to Stacey and the people of Georgia, who galvanized so that we can move forward. Steps are ordered with the presence of mind. Everything's more beautiful in time.
Shine, flies, no time to waste while it's passing you by. Shine, flies, be patient, cause good things happen in time. We gon' get it right, we gon' get it right, we gon' get it right.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nicordelai Corte, your host and White House correspondent, joining you live in afternoon drive time where I'm in touch. And so guess what? Toot, toot, beep, beep. You be in touch. Follow me on all the social media platforms at Dr. Nicordelai. Just type in Dr. Niq, DRNIIQ, and there I am. Fresh for you to follow. Also, be sure to download the KBLA app if you haven't already. That way you can listen to us live or on demand. You know, you can also just tell Alexa to play KBLA Talk 1580, and there we are, like magic. Last but not least, be sure to subscribe to the KBLA YouTube channel. That way, you don't just get to hear us, you get to see us, and even hop into a More Perfect group chat to sound off as you please. You know what I just realized while our theme music was playing? And, you know, that's actually one of the frequently asked questions I get when I'm out and about is, what's that song? What's that song? That song before the show. It's called Get It Right. And it's by Common. I think it's also featuring Raphael Sadiq. And a few weeks ago, I was on my old stomping grounds at the University of Southern California and had a chance to participate in a Thornton School of Music, sort of behind the scenes, off the record conversation with Raphael Sadiq, the legendary Raphael Sadiq. For all the Tony fans out there, for all the folks like us that hail from the Bay Area, you know exactly who I'm talking about. It just dawned on me that afterwards, when I was chit-chatting with Raphael, look at me calling him Raphael, I forgot to tell him thank you for our theme song, for all the great music, but particularly that theme song. I think it's kind of jazzy. It gets me going every day. I hope it gets you all going every day too. But it's called Get It Right by Common featuring Raphael Sadiq. And so, it's always a good day to show some love. Go ahead, download the song. That way you get to jam to it, not just when we play it, but anytime you want. All right, now it's time for your national news roundup. It's time for you to decide the good, bad, and ugly headlines of the day. Kicking us off, the Associated Press is reporting that the Justice Department moves to toss seditious conspiracy convictions of the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys. You remember them? The Justice Department today asked a federal appeals court to throw out the seditious conspiracy convictions of Proud Boys and Oath Keepers those leaders who were sentenced, if you remember, to prison terms for leading members of the far right extremist group in attacking the U.S. Capitol to keep President Trump in office for, this happened over 5 years ago, right? And that was what their mission was. Trump commuted the prison sentence of several Proud Boys and Oath Keepers last January in his sweeping act of clemency. Y'all remember that? For all 1,500 plus defendants that were charged in the January 6th attacks. Well, the request by the Justice Department would go a step further and erase all the convictions. Like it never happened. It would erase all of the convictions for the extremist group leaders, including Oath Keepers founder Stuart Rhodes, who didn't receive pardons last January. The move to abandon the convictions, it represented a stunning reversal from the Biden administration, which hailed the guilty verdicts as a crucial victory in the bid to hold accountable those responsible for what prosecutors described as an attack on the heart of American democracy. It's part of the Trump administration's continued efforts to rewrite the history of the January 6th attack and downplay the violence carried out by the mob of Trump supporters that left more than 100 police officers injured. In court filings, prosecutors asked the U.S. Court of Appeals for D.C.'s circuit to vacate the conviction so that the government can permanently dismiss the indictments. Now, remember when President Trump appointed Todd Blanche to serve in the administration. Todd Blanche, who once upon a time served as the president's personal lawyer. A lot of people are, oh my gosh, the president is turning the Department of Justice into his personal law firm. Well, there are a lot of Republicans that said, well, hold your horses, doesn't necessarily mean, that is the case. Well, all I know is Pam Bondi's out. Todd Blanche is now the acting attorney general. And look what the Justice Department has done. Look at what they've done. And so you got to watch not just what they say, but you got to watch what they do. And this don't look good. This don't smell good. We'll continue to keep our eye on this as it makes its way through the courts. In other news, we know that Virginia now joins a national effort to ensure that the popular vote winner becomes the president. That's right. Virginia is not just for lovers. It's for folks that are interested in clarifying our electoral process. A national effort to circumvent the Electoral College has gained another state. NPR is reporting that Virginia Governor Abigail Spanberger signed a bill on Monday that adds the state to the National Popular Vote Compact. It's an agreement among states to award their presidential electoral votes to the nationwide popular vote winner. With Virginia, the total number of states signed on to the Interstate Compact is now at 18, plus the District of Columbia, for a total of 222 electoral votes. The compact, it doesn't go into effect, though, until there are enough states signed up to reach the required 270 electoral votes to elect a president. But with dozens of electoral votes to go, it's unclear which other states would seek to enact the compact next. Could it be your state? Did you even know about this? And it's also worth noting that even if it were to cross the 270 threshold, legal challenges would likely await. But the measure advanced in Virginia after last year's election gave Democrats the governor's office and full control of the legislature. The Democratic Virginia House of Delegate member Dan Helmer, he told sources that getting the state to join the compact was at least a decade-long process. But he likened the effort to new threats against American democracy. And so, a lot of folks that, aren't waiting for us to, just, reform the Electoral College process by hocus pocus, right? This is a reminder that we all have the power to do something. We all have some agency. And the question is, how are we going to use it? And so, if you don't see this kind of action happening in your state, you may want to call your governor's office. You may want to call the legislative leaders in the legislature where you live, your assembly speaker, your Senate leader, your member of Congress. You may want to call them and ask them, hey, what gives? When we come forward, we're switching gears. I'm really excited to stretch out with this incredible public servant, author Jason G. Green. He's the author of Too Precious to Lose. He joins us to talk about his journey writing this incredible book. I have it right here in front of me. This book. Right here. Go get it. Too Precious to Lose, a memoir of family, community, and possibility. Jason is a former Obama White House staffer, and he writes about his rural Maryland family's untold history, the merger of three churches, one black, two white, and how a radical embrace of community became their salvation in his. You don't want to miss this story when we come forward. You're listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Carpal tunnel syndrome, heart failure that doesn't improve with common medicines. These are some signs and symptoms associated with ATTR-CM, or the cardiomyopathy of ATTR amyloidosis, a serious heart condition with symptoms that get worse over time. AMVUTTRA, vutrisiran, is a prescription medicine given by a healthcare provider that treats ATTR-CM in adults to reduce heart-related death, hospital stays, and urgent visits. In a clinical study, AMVUTTRA was proven to help people live longer and have fewer heart-related hospital stays and urgent visits over 3 years compared to placebo. AMVUTTRA lowers the amount of vitamin A in your blood, which can affect vision. Other side effects include pain in the arms or legs, pain in the joints, and shortness of breath. These are not all the possible side effects of AMVUTTRA. For prescribing information, call 1-833-256-2748 or learn more at amvuttra.com. Ask your doctor about AMVUTTRA for ATTR-CM.
My mom has decided to learn to paint, and she's good.
My dad's now into creative cuisine, and I've already put on 6 pounds.
Learning new things comes with age.
My mom, she started forgetting my name and what we're talking about.
Forgetting well-known things doesn't. Memory loss may be a sign of Alzheimer's disease. Early detection gives you and your loved one time to plan for the future. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's at 10signs.org. Brought to you by the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, host of The Voice of Reason, weeknights at 7 p.m. here on KBLA Talk 1580, with a personal invitation for you to join me and Insight.me as we present The Healing Box, live at Inglewood's world-famous Miracle Theater, Saturday evening, May 23rd at 7 p.m. Look, I understand your attachment style has been running your life like a rogue algorithm, and nobody has had the courage to press pause. Until now, Dr. Pakoya McCall and yours truly are curating a night where clinicians, spiritualists, and an all-star panel of Black woman healers like Dr. Shalonda Sunshine Crawford, Dr. Jashana Johnson, and spiritualist Precious McGill will join some amazing spoken word artists and the legendary comedian Louis Dix to diagnose, disrupt, and heal your relational wreckage in real time. Listen, bring your trauma. As a matter of fact, bring your baby mama. No, bring your testimony. And if you're still texting your ex at 2 a.m., baby, you're not just invited, you're the target demo. Tickets are moving fast, so grab yours at themiracleinglewood.com before your dating history gets flagged as a pre-existing condition. That's themiracleinglewood.com. We'll see you there Saturday, May 23rd at 7 p.m.
Hit me! National news, the consequence, informed opinion, and analysis beyond the headlines. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Cordeli Corte, and let me tell you how excited I am. I could not be more excited to be in conversation with my next guest, Jason Green. He's a Maryland-born community organizer, attorney, storyteller, and entrepreneur. He means business. Maybe that's why he served as special assistant to the president and associate White House counsel to President Obama, advising on economic and domestic policy issues. He is the co-founder of SkillSmart, which is a company that reshapes how communities measure economic impact. He's also the CEO of Evergreen Labs, but his latest feat yet, author of this one right here.
Got my copy too.
It's called Too Precious to Lose, a memoir of family, community, and possibility. Welcome to A More Perfect Union, Jason Green.
So good to see you. Thank you. I told you I've been waiting to get on your show. I'm so flattered to finally get the invitation and humbled to be here.
Well, I mean, what an occasion. What an occasion. Let me just, before we get started, let me just communicate to you how much of an incredible achievement it is to be an author. I remember when I published Kamala, the Motherland, and Me back in 2024.
Yeah.
And, after you go through, the hazing process of putting together any book, once it's finally done, there's something so special about becoming immortal in a very special way. Not just you, but your family. How does that feel?
Oh my goodness. First of all, what a tremendous gift you gave us all in that. And I love that you called it hazing, because now that I've been through it, I want people to have to go through it, but then I also want to be on the other side to receive them and catch them and pull them across and let them be the beneficiary of all the lessons and all my trials and tribulations in my own process. And I'm flattered that you say that this immortalization process, I don't think that I would have had the steadfastness to finish this project if I wasn't talking about a subject that I love as much as I love this family and this community, right? And so that got me through that. Ultimately, this wasn't about telling my story and writing Too Precious to Lose. It was sort of trying to do a community and my family, right? To do justice to those stories. And that's what ultimately allowed me to finish the hazing process as you describe it.
This is a moment where there's a lot happening in the world. I'm sure you have lots of thoughts and lots of opinions about the current occupant of the White House, especially having served in the White House during the Obama years. But before we opine on that, I want to share an observation. I talk to a lot of people every day on this platform and others, and it seems that a lot of folks are trying to find ways to get rooted in the truth of who they are and the truth of where they come from and the truth of what they are feeling and experiencing. People are looking for signs. They're looking for some indication of just how we might get to the other side of what's happening in our country and in the world today. Talk to us about what led you to write this book, a memoir of family and community and possibility, and have the nerve to publish it right now in the Trump era.
Yeah, I think that you're so spot on in that feeling that people have. And I am not alone. I can say with great conviction that I wrote this book for your listeners because I am one of your listeners, and I wrote this book for me. Right? Like, I had that feeling and that sentiment that I didn't know the right direction, way to turn. I felt unmoored, unconnected, and deeply unrooted. And so when you read this book, when you read Too Precious to Lose, you see this as kind of my own interrogation of my own thoughts and my own history, the way in which I've shown up in the world. And part of the solution that I find is, as you suggest, truth, right? To be able to go back and sort of talk to tangible things, to sort of connect myself to history. At one point in the book, I come to some conclusions as I look out across a 150-year-old cemetery. Right? I look back at that legacy of hope of people who were able to dream impossible dreams that had far fewer options or resources than I ever had. And that experience, right, to be connected to that history gives me resilience. It gives me hope in these moments. And so I think for folks that felt like I did, that are looking for stories, that are looking for pathways, this is a book for them. It's a book for me and a book for them. I think that there's times when we go back into the past to talk about the history and can get stuck in the nostalgia moments, right? We get stuck looking backwards. The point of this was more like the Sankofa bird, right? Where we're looking backwards to allow us to go forward. We want to take lessons from these stories that I share about my family, about this community of Quince Orchard, but only with the purpose, which is where you started your question, which is how do we move forward through these times to recognize that there is another side, that there is work for us to do to get there, but that there's a pathway for us to forge.
Yeah. In this book, it's interesting how you not only trace the history of your family, but you trace the history of historical events and what was happening in the lives of your family members, what was happening in the community of, is it Quince Orchard? Quince Orchard? It's Quince Orchard. I'm sorry, I'm from California, so I think in Spanish sometimes.
All good.
I said, how is there a Quince Orchard in Maryland? So much of the story revolves around Quince Orchard. Tell our leaders, learners, and listeners about Quince Orchard. Set the scene. Why is this place so special to you? Why has it been so special to your family for generations?
It's such a great question. I think it's important for me to tee this up. I grew up in a community at a time period, early 80s. My grandparents lived at the top of a street, top of this dirt road. My family lived at the bottom. Aunts and cousins lived in between. We lived right next door to my grandfather's pig farm. I'm a sort of burgeoning suburban kid that grew up in a very rural setting, right? I grew up next to the farm, never having to work on the farm. So I'm very of that world. When my grandmother was born in the early 1900s, that community was called Quince Orchard. When my father was born in the 1950s, that community was called Quince Orchard. When I came along, I didn't know about Quince Orchard. I was born into Gaithersburg, right? So now if you fast forward to my time in the Obama White House, I'm 4 years into serving, and I get a call from my mother that my then 95-year-old grandmother was in the hospital, right? So I go back and I sit with her, and that experience offered me wonderful perspective. But part of the reason that it motivated me ultimately, as you know, to leave the White House and sort of be with her is because she started talking about this place, Quince Orchard. She started talking about this Black community that was founded in the 1860s by my own great-great-grandparents. She started talking about this place that had these churches. She started talking about this place that had, this sort of communal spirit where, when she was a girl and she might get in trouble at school, she'd get a spanking before she even got home because it was that close-knit and that patchwork. And I had these feelings of longing for that. I wanted to understand what that was like to grow up in a all-Black community like that, because I had grown up on an all-Black street in a predominantly white community, and so didn't have that sort of connection or those sorts of relationships. And so learning about Quince Orchard, learning about the people and the places of Quince Orchard and these tremendous decisions that they made to build community is what ultimately inspired me to leave my time serving, as Associate White House Counsel to President Obama and go on this different, new, inspiring journey to capture our family story.
Wow. That's incredible. I mean, there are so many stories in history of Black towns that were thriving, whether we're talking about Rosewood or we're talking about Tulsa. Talk to us about your idea, the idea that you had in your head of these Black communities, at their height, and these Black communities besieged by violence. Talk to me about your ideas about those Black communities before and after you learned of your family's history in Quince Orchard.
I think the Black church is such a wonderful representation of the question you're talking about. So in this community of Quince Orchard, my great-great-grandparents, Gary and Matilda, right, in 1868, they helped they pulled their resources together for this Black communal spirit, got $54, bought 3 acres of land, and on that land they built the schoolhouse, they built the church building, they put the social hall, right? They put the cemetery plot, all in one space to have this sort of life cycle of the Black experience. Well, within that Black church, and the same sentiments existed in the schoolhouse, but I think the Black church is really wonderfully representative. If you can imagine in those times when the world was telling those congregants that they were less than, right? My grandfather, unfortunately, lost both of his parents before he ever hit the 5th grade, and therefore had to stop school, had to go off into the fields and work in that regard and bring home those earnings to try and keep the family afloat. He didn't have official schooling, but in that church, he was somebody, right? He was a trustee in the church. He was the treasurer in the church. Right? It was a place where he could wear his Sunday best, and in so doing, tell other members of the congregation that they see their dignity. You offer that respect, give that gift of humanity, and so that was something that was really powerful. That existed, truly a sanctuary space. And I think you can extrapolate that out when you're talking about these Black communities, right? That was the same spirit when you talk about the Black excellence that existed in those schoolhouses, where you had teachers that were of the community, that demanded a lot, but were also able to meet children where they are and sort of understand their plight and their opportunity. That existed in these spaces where we had to create them, right? My grandmother often said, where I talk about the need for that school, there wasn't a public education for Black children at that time. That building had to be created, that curriculum had to be written, the teacher had to be secured, and so those outcomes were community oriented, they were community led and interconnected. There was a real shared responsibility amongst the community to ensure that the children in those schools were successful, that the needs of the congregants in those churches were met. And so that's the spirit that I thought that was so attractive to me, that I wanted to spend some time, really understand and learn more.
The audience is listening, thought-provoking, eye-opening, heart-rendering. This is where authentic voices meet powerful discussions on culture, community, and change. This is where Black voices matter. He's breaking boundaries, amplifying diverse perspectives, and tackling the issues that matter most to you. You're inside A More Perfect Union with Dr. Nee Cordelai-Corte on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. A strike is no longer happening in Los Angeles schools. Black Mayor Karen Bass announced Los Angeles Unified School District and Service Employees International Union Local 99 reached a tentative agreement overnight, avoiding a walkout by about 30,000 support staff.
Dedicated workers care for our children every day.
Other school unions also reached deals so schools across the district will stay open. The New Orleans City Council is voting on whether to keep IV waste handling trash pickup in the French Quarter through 2027. The company won a legal fight last year against Henry Consulting, the contractor preferred by former Black Mayor LaToya Cantrell's administration, but a pending lawsuit could still reopen the door for another contractor. And France may block rapper Kanye West from performing there after the UK barred him from entering. Officials are reportedly trying to stop his planned June 11th show in Marseille, with the city's mayor also speaking out against it. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
If you need to lose 50 pounds or more and diets haven't worked, you're not alone. West Medical offers physician-guided weight loss consultations to help you understand your options. Most PPO insurance plans are accepted and they verify your benefits for free. Call 1-800-WESTMED today for your free consultation.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Luka Doncic will rejoin the Lakers on Friday after spending a week in Spain to get special treatment for his hamstring injury. The Lakers remain uncertain if Doncic will be healthy for the first round of the playoffs against Houston. The NBA leading scorer was hurt April 2nd at Oklahoma City. The injury was diagnosed as a grade 2 strained hamstring. No change in Austin Reeves' status. Reeves is still expected to be out the next 5 to 6 weeks with a strained oblique muscle. There is a bright spot for the Lakers during this injury crisis. The Lakers are heading into the playoffs with a very efficient and productive LeBron James. Since Doncic and Reeves got hurt, LeBron is averaging 25.5 points, 11 assists, 6.8 rebounds, and 2.5 steals. He was voted Western Conference Player of the Week on Monday. It looks like the 41-year-old LeBron is ready to put the Lakers on his back in the postseason. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
If you're not following KBLA Talk 1580 on all of our socials, then you're missing out. Download our app and find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on the web at KBLA 1580.
That's right.
Again, you can find all of our socials at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
By the way, if you miss any of our weekday shows in real time, you can always catch up by checking out the podcast of your favorite shows at your leisure. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Got your black. Follow the leader.
Following the leader.
Oh my God. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
An official message from Medicare. Couple more minutes and we'll start this month's book club.
You know, I usually love a plot twist, but this year I'm comparing my options during Medicare open enrollment.
You can't assume your current health or drug plan is the best one for you.
And you got to make sure your drugs are covered. That's important.
So is saving money. Review all your options at Medicare.gov. Open enrollment ends December 7th. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
If a Lenovo computer for your business is on your holiday list, don't shop around. Just go directly to the source, Lenovo.com. It's your last chance to get exclusive deals on the PCs you want for your business, like the ThinkPad X9 14 Aura Edition and Yoga 7i 2-in-1. So avoid all that shopping chaos and price comparing, and just go directly to the source, Lenovo.com, where PCs are up to 35% off. That's Lenovo.com.
Lenovo.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. At the heart of the Al Wooten Center's mission for good citizenship and academic excellence is a desire to ensure that every student avoids the kind of lifestyle and overcomes the kinds of challenges that led to the murder of Al Wooten Jr. In 1990, founder Myrtle Fay Rumpf opened the center in honor of her son's life. In 2026, they are serving more than 300 students in grades 3 through 12 annually online and on site at their youth center and other sites in the South LA area. The Al Wooten Jr. Youth Center takes a neighborhood approach to the revitalization and empowerment of a community in crisis. The Wooten Center provides free after-school and summer programs to help students in grades 3 through 12 attain grade-level proficiency and promotion, high school graduation, and college and career access and success. The Al Wooten Center focuses on academics, STEM, the arts, and so much more. Join them for an enriching experience that sparks creativity and nurtures young minds. Tap in at WootenCenter.org. That's WootenCenter.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Now back to building a more perfect union on KBLA Talk 1580.
I want to give our leaders, learners, and listeners a little flavor, for how you write about the Black church in this book. On page 119, you write, when Grandma Green had first unraveled the tale of the three churches uniting under one roof, she paused, drawing me into the depth of the moment. But just as the April 4th, 1968 meeting had been abruptly interrupted by the gut-wrenching news of Dr. King's assassination, I abruptly interrupted her. Before she could reach the crescendo of her narrative, I blurted out, "They didn't merge, did they?" She shot me a piercing glare, exasperated. She said, "Yes, they had." Grandma's annoyance with me gave way to disbelief about my disbelief. "Jason, you've been to the church. It's where you were baptized and practically raised. They all merged and became Fairhaven United Methodist Church." Grandma was right. I had grown up in Fairhaven. The Phillips, the Grounds, the Johnsons, the Alexanders, the Rodnors, the Taylors, the Prasads, the Paytons, the Youngs, the Ferrises, just to name a few. We came from different backgrounds, but we all belonged to each other. We kids were all thick as thieves. We got our hands smacked together. We endured vacation Bible school, and we would launch ourselves off the swing set and over the puddle after church together. I can still remember choir practice in that sanctuary when an ember from an overhead stained glass light fell and burned my forehead as Ms. Brown led us in a round of This Little Light of Mine. Wow, Jason Green, you really set the scene. You really take us there. Talk to us about how you were able to recall the stories of your grandmother, experiences that you had as a kid, how you were able to recall those memories with stunning clarity.
I think in many respects, I've lived them over and over and over in my mind. My grandmother was this really sharp, brilliant woman. You know that I went to go sit with her at 95. I remember thinking that I had waited too long. In many respects, I had been on this pursuit of self-importance. You know, I had gone off to Yale Law School. I had gone off to the fabled Obama campaign. I went into the White House, right? So for 6 years, I hadn't really been home. And I remember when I started hearing some of these stories that my grandmother was telling, I went to my older sister and I said, hey, did you know these stories? And she said, yeah. How didn't you? You know, she had made time. She had gone and sat with my grandmother before school, you know, had breakfast with her. And so it got in the stories. And so I remember now showing up late, right, expecting my grandmother to bend to my time. And so I show up and say, Grandma, I want to know it all. Like, tell me what it was like going to school, like Quince Orchard down at Pleasant View. She started to and ah, and I thought, oh no, I waited too long. My once sharp grandmother, you know. And she squeezed my hand and she goes, well, I think it was a Thursday. That's right. It was a Thursday in 1924. And she started, you know, to tell me about her first day at school. And so I got to hear that story. And so every time I showed up, you know, I did this over time. I got to have my, you know, you've heard of Tuesdays with Maury. I got to have my Tuesdays with Grandma. And she would tell me the same stories over and over and over. And so I'd write them down. I get to write them down another time. I get to write them down another time. And then they would make me think about some other experience in my own life that I would start to jot down and recall and remember. But the other part of my grandmother's brilliance was she didn't want me to just stay in her hospital room. So if there was a part of a story that got me excited, she would see me, you know, particularly in the church merger, which you just read, we could talk more about it. She saw me perk up about that. And she said, oh, well, if that interests you, you should go talk to Miss Johnson and Miss Blair and Cousin Melvin. And she had, you know, this brilliance about her that she knew that she had one perspective of the story and that these stories were truly community stories. And so part of the reason and ability to tell a vibrant story is because I ended up talking to 80 people. So I talked to all these different folks who had different component parts of the story. And so obviously 80 characters can't show up, but those 80 voices show up. So we're able to tell a more comprehensive experience right through the characters that are in the book, but they're really carrying the water of all those 80 people that are in different facets of the Quince Orchard story, right? That they are the fabric that comes through in the pages of Too Precious to Lose.
Well, we definitely experience that in every chapter, on every page. Just, you know, the way you capture community voice, the dynamism and the voices of your grandmother, I was like blown away. I'm like, wow, how is he able to do this? As somebody that was very young when some parts of the story even took place. And so I want to go back to something you said earlier that I think might have struck a chord with our audience. You talked about the pursuit of self-importance. That, you know, no shade, but, you know, we're all living our lives as best we can. And sometimes we may be in our own pursuit of self-importance, you know, not with any malintent, but it just is what it is. Talk to us about what that looked like for you, your pursuit of self-importance, how you came to understand that's what it was, and where you're at in that journey currently.
It's an ongoing journey, my brother. You know, some would argue that the experience of writing a book is also an exercise in self-importance, right? Like there's ego undoubtedly, that stays with us. It's part of what drives us. It's part of what makes us care, it makes us perfectionists, right? It makes us want to produce and create into the world. When I talk about this journey of self-importance, I almost talk about this sort of myopic focus, or I should say blinders on focus. It wasn't necessarily myopic. There was an element of selflessness to it. I wanted to try and, I was working for someone else. I was working to try and get Barack Obama elected president. I wanted Barack Obama to be successful. Where I got a little wayward was the balance, right? I was so interested in trying to effectuate the singular event, right? To make history, that I didn't appreciate all the history that was around me. I was so consumed in trying to be the first person in my family to go work in the federal government. I didn't appreciate that my grandmother worked at the federal government Department of Energy back in the 1960s, right? There's something really important and powerful about knowing your story. And I think I just assumed that I knew it. I assumed that I had consumed and gathered the pieces that were relevant. And there's a great deal of power that comes in fully knowing the story. I encourage everyone that's watching this program, that's listening to this program, we have a responsibility to collect our history, right? And we often talk about that in terms of the opportunity, when we have the time, when we have the space. I was not afforded that. I was afforded the good fortune of a wake-up call, right? Like, I got a call, my grandmother was dying, so I didn't have the optionality that we normally have, right? What should I do? What makes sense? So sometimes people will say that it was a courageous decision. I don't think it was courageous. I think with those sorts of options, you make the decision. Now, we know in hindsight that my grandmother lived another 11 years, right? She died 2 months before she was 107. I'm glad I didn't know that, because I don't know what I would have done. I may have stayed for the second term of the Obama administration, and then who knows what happened. So I didn't have full information. Made the decision with the information that we had at the time. I'm so glad that I did. And I encourage others, because I can't tell you how many times I engage with someone that says, I was supposed to do that. I was supposed to capture my aunt or my uncle or my great aunt's stories, and they passed away without being able for us to get them down and for us to capture them. And so there really is this responsibility, this opportunity. And why I say this in response to your question is because I know that I'm better. Like, I'm better having known that story. I want everyone to be, to feel something, right? I wrote this because I want people to have lessons, but I know that regardless of whether that happens, regardless if anyone else reads this book, that I'm better because I got to sit with my grandmother. I'm better because I got to sit with those 80 individuals, right? And carry someone else's story and wrestle with how I fit in it and how they fit in mine. And I get to be a better ancestor. I get to be a better descendant. I get to be a better lawyer, a better husband. Like, all of those things are better because I've carried someone else's story. And so I want that for other people, right? In response to this path of self-importance, it's also in response to this question I feel like we're asking quite a bit right now of how do we build resilient families, resilient communities, resilient children. It starts with sitting in these stories, because we'll have a resilient history and a resilient past that I think is deeply empowering when we make time to learn it and be connected to it.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. I mean, when I'm not going beyond the day's headlines or covering the White House, I've been doing a lot of work as journalist in residence for the Black Land Loss Narrative Archive Project. And I've actually found respite in talking to the descendants of Black folks from across the country who've lost land and homes and businesses, and hearing their origin story, hearing the story of resilience in their families and in these communities over the course of generations, hearing folks take up the baton to fight for justice. I have found it to be incredibly inspiring. I think a lot of our leaders, learners, and listeners will find what you have committed to the page here in this beautiful book, Too Precious to Lose. I think they too will be inspired by elements of your story.
Striving to make America a nation as good as its promise. This is A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
58 years ago, a bullet tried to silence a dream. It couldn't. On April 4th, 1968, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was taken from us. Not because he failed, but because he was winning. Winning the fight for a nation determined to live up to its promise. That fight didn't end then, and it can't end now. California is the most powerful state and the most powerful country on earth. Right now, too many people are being left behind, priced out of their homes, locked out of opportunity, told to wait for justice that's already long overdue. Dr. King didn't wait. He taught us the fierce urgency of now and acted. Now it's up to us to carry that same urgency today. We need leaders who will fight the triple evils of poverty, racism, and militarism. Not someday, now. On this anniversary, let's honor Dr. King the only way that truly counts, by doing the work. Ad paid for by Steyer for Governor 2026.
Stay informed with 24/7 power outage alerts from LADWP delivered straight to your phone or email when an outage occurs. Get notified when there's a major outage and again when your power is restored. Track up to 3 neighborhoods, like your home, your workplace, even a family member's. Stay connected. Stay informed. Sign up at ladwp.com/outage alert. That's ladwp.com/outage alert. Sign up today at ladwp.com/outage alert. From station to stage, LA Metro connects you to the artistic heart of Los Angeles. Celebrate this National Arts Month with Metro, exploring galleries, theaters, and cultural spaces across the city. Art isn't just where you end up, it's how you get there.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Michael's Daughter Foundation is dedicated to inspiring youth and resilience through storytelling, arts, filmmaking, and enrichment programs for youth and families in under-resourced communities and system-impacted individuals. The Michael's Daughter Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit providing free and low-cost arts programs to youth and families from under-resourced communities, both system-impacted youth and those affected by the incarceration of a loved one. 1 in 43 children in America have a parent incarcerated. 70% of those children are expected to end up in prison. Through filmmaking, animation, theater, and writing, they help young people express themselves, build confidence, and imagine new possibilities. Beyond the arts, they offer financial literacy workshops, emergency support, and scholarships. Because thriving takes more than talent, it takes access. To learn more about the impact of Michael Daughters Foundation and how you can be a part of the movement, please visit their website, michaelsdaughterfoundation.com. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
We face tragedy, but we don't fall into despair. We continue our work to build a more perfect union.
For folks who are less familiar, you should know that Jason Green's research, it really uncovered a surprising trove of tales about his newly freed ancestors who built this African-American house of worship. Where on the eve of Dr. King's assassination, they made a brave decision to create an integrated church in Quince's Orchard. And one of the things that really captivated me in preparation for our conversation is that this story is a part of what you call the texture in the American fabric, the moral leadership of the Black church, the longstanding resilience of the Black community, and the transformative love of family. Talk to us about the fabric of America. We are commemorating, celebrating, reflecting on the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, of the start of America as we know it. Talk to us about what we might reflect on as we think about the fabric of America for the next 250 years.
Yeah, that's so good. When you talked about how do we forge, right, this chasm that people are feeling right now, I think that these two concepts are deeply connected. When I look back at this, these churches, right, so we had a historically Black congregation in this community. We had two historically white congregations themselves split over the issue of slavery, right? The Methodist Episcopal Church split in the 1840s over slavery. So you had a Methodist Episcopal Northern Church, a Methodist Episcopal Southern Church. And so in this little community, this little rural farming town, you have a microcosm of America, right? And because of where Maryland is situated, close to the Mason-Dixon line, it gets this, you get unique bedfellows all in the same community. And so part of why I equate this to the American fabric is that when the decision was made for these churches to merge, right, emotion was clearly injected into that decision when Dr. King was assassinated on April 4th, 1968. But remember that process initiated in part because of economic need. Those churches were falling on hard financial times, right? The Black church didn't have the congregation necessary to sustain itself. That's what precipitated this conversation in the first place, got these folks talking, and they were just having a little bit of a conversation over time. When that decision finally came, what was attractive to it to me was the synergy between the merger happening and this being on the night that Dr. King was assassinated. I thought clearly that has to be the most important part of this story. And then as I started to have some of these conversations, I realized that, no, that was an electric moment. But after they sobered up from that moment, they had to figure out how to bind these three churches together, right? Which building would they worship in? Which church name would they use? Who was going to be the pastor? How long would the sermon be? Which hymn book would they be singing from? Would there be a gospel choir? Would they have a sanctuary choir? Like what? Who was going to sit where? And those are the democratic norms of how you run an organization, all the way up to how you run an institution or a country, right? How do we come together? How do we bring together three different cultures, three different people, all with identities, all with histories, all with care, right? And so when we think about the American experiment, what I didn't fully appreciate around these churches was that because I inherited it, right? Fairhaven was there when I showed up. The merger had happened in 1968. They had figured out a lot of this binding. And so I just got to be the recipient of it. And I feel like that's where we're at with America. We've been the recipient of decisions and cultures that have been forged. We didn't realize that what was intentionally created must also therefore be intentionally kept or changed. And so we have the decision now to decide which of those values, which of those experiences, which of those stories do we pull forward, right? This is the truth-telling piece of our work. It's the truth-telling that leads to some of these reconciliation moments. And so there are lessons to be drawn from the work that those three churches had to do in binding themselves together in that now the next generational work to taking what was decided and pulling it and persisting and pulling it forward. America for the next 250 years has to recognize it is at a very similar moment. It's at this existential moment. And so what does the next 250 years look like? Which components of our history are we going to continue to lift up? Which of our values are we going to lead with, right? We alluded to what's happening in Washington right now, but this is a critical component of what the American people are going to do. The most important office is the American citizenry. And so we have to think about how we want to continue to bind up with the identity that we are, because this truly is an experiment. The same as that church merger is an experiment, and it's never successful. It's only as enduring as it is that we commit ourselves to it.
Jason, might the next 250 years include a run for public office?
For you, I mean, I'm here for it, and I support you. We all support you. I think this is such a wonderful platform. I didn't know you were going to make news today, but that is wonderful for you.
You're good. I'm talking about you. That was really good, though. That was good.
I'm here to serve, man. I'm happy to. I will serve right beside you.
Our thanks to Jason G. Green. Run, Don't Walk, to pick up this gem of a book. Too Precious to Lose, a memoir of family, community, and possibility. Godspeed to you, my friend.
So good to be with you. Thank you for the opportunity. Just really an honor to be in conversation, and hopefully I get to do it again before I have to write another book.
I think we can make that happen. You've been listening. We're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. That was author Jason Green. And, here's the book right here. I got it right here. I've been thumbing through it. Too Precious to Lose, a memoir of family, community, and possibility. Jason is it's a funny guy. Sometimes people love to turn the tables on you real quick. But I've got to tell you, being in conversation with Jason on air and off air, this is somebody who is, sort of the consummate public servant. You see it in the way that he works, in the way that he moves through the world, in the way that he engages folks. And, one of the things that you saw Lee mention is that, that's something that he sort of struggles with. There are a lot of people I have found that would be incredible public servants. I mean, let me tell you something, there's no time like the present for a lot of folks to serve. But I think, some of the folks that have what it takes, aren't all that interested. And so I hope to all the Jason Greens that are out there that have a servant's heart and understands what's at stake in terms of our shared future. I hope you too will consider serving in some way, shape, or form, particularly advancing the public interest. You are listening to and streaming a more perfect union here on KBLA Talk 1580. When we come forward, we're continuing in this theme of faith and service. I'll be joined with Bishop Derek Greer. He is the founder of the National Unity Weekend and the Let's Talk Initiative. We're going to talk all about that and more. You're listening to and streaming a more perfect union on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. A strike is no longer happening in Los Angeles schools. Black Mayor Karen Bass announced Los Angeles Unified School District and Service Employees International Union Local 99 reached a tentative agreement overnight, avoiding a walkout by about 30,000 support staff.
Dedicated workers care for our children every day.
Other school unions also reached deals, so schools across the district will